2023, sorry. This is learning session 2, Aesthetics of Education. Maybe we'll have Soma Singh, an education consultant from Deep Pedagogics in India, to share on the topic, cultural competence and resilience. For participants, if you would like to pose a question, please drop it in the Q&A box. And I will pass the time now to Soma Singh.
Thank you so much, Yang. A warm hello to everyone. This is Soma Singh from Ghaziabad, India. I have been an educator with K-12 schools for 26 years, and across my experience with the schools in the National Capital Region, I have been able to interact with thousands and thousands of students, and thereby a lot of learning has happened through my travels abroad, through my interaction with my overseas partners, the educators, and I have been able to visit the United Kingdom, the schools in United Kingdom, and I have been able to participate in the Microsoft Educators Exchange. So a lot of learning my way had come through those experiences. And across my teaching career, I have been able to build very strong bonds with my kids, and therefore I've been able to make a deep impact on their lives. So here we go. I would like to share my presentation on a role of aesthetic learning in building resilient communities. And this presentation is inspired from the ideology of Dr. Rabindranath Tagore. He was the only Indian in the 20th century who has been able to accord a Nobel Prize in literature in the 20th century. And Dr. Rabindranath Tagore has composed the national anthem of India, and he had played a key role in building the resilience among the people of West Bengal and across the country during the Indian freedom struggle. So I would just take a while in sharing my presentation. I hope I'm audible, Yang.
Soma Singh, thank you
Yes,
so much. I think your video camera is still not visible yet. Would you try turn it off and turn it on again so
I'll
that we
do
can
that.
check it together?
I'll definitely do that. Let me just try that out.
Yes, thank you.
So I please just confirm that the slide is visible, the presentation. Video camera I've turned off, and
Yes.
I'm turning it on. Yes, here we go. I can see myself. Could you see me?
Sorry we couldn't see you. It is still a black screen there.
Uh, I can see myself on the screen now. If
Okay.
anyone amongst the audience may confirm that, I'll try the turning off of the video camera once again and try
Okay.
turning it on. So here we go. Am I visible to you now, Yang?
Not visible to me.
Uh, could be the network. I can see myself there on the slide along with you.
Hmm.
Shall we continue? Somebody has written not visible. Oh, not visible to the audience even.
I see.
Let me try turning the camera off and on again. Um, Visible and clear. Thank you, Mr. Pradeep Kumar. Thank you so much. So now my slide is also on and I'm also there. Um, I'll come back again. So my presentation is inspired by the education philosophy and the vision of Dr. Rabindranath Tagore, who has been the Nobel Prize laureate from India in the 20th century. And he had founded the Shanti-Niketan in 1863, which eventually came up as the Vishwa Bharati University in 1921. So Through this presentation, we'll explore how the different forms of aesthetic learning have been implemented in the Vishwabharati University and Shanti-Niketan, and how Tagore's vision has been very close to the vision of nurturing the individuals wholesomely, be it the intellectual development, be it the emotional development, be it the spiritual development. So, in today's conflict torn world where every place is like going through some sort of agitation, the world is in need of some education reforms of the kinds that Dr. Tagore
Hello, sorry. We couldn't hear you right now. Could you turn off your voice function and try it again? Sorry.
Yeah, I'll try that again.
Yes.
So
Now
how
it is.
does it go now? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
Can
you.
you?
I'm so sorry for the disturbance and for the intervention. Yes. So we were just talking about aesthetic education, that it is a holistic approach wherein the artistic expression gets integrated with the uh, all the subjects that the student studies, and then the holistic growth of the student is ascertained, be it intellectual development, the spiritual development, or the emotional development. So it is the development of the body, mind, heart, soul. Whereas resilience, because we're connecting resilience and building resilient communities with aesthetic education. So it's important that we understand what resilience means. I mean, generally, in literary terms, we relate resilience with bouncing back, but it is beyond that. So resilience is not just about bouncing back to a previous state, but also about learning, growing, and even thriving in the midst of challenges. It encompasses emotional strength, flexibility, adaptability, and ability to utilize available resources, be it in any time, any space, any circumstances. And you access the resources and the support available and thrive in midst of challenges. That's what resilience here means. Uh, we move to the next slide here. The visual, what all is incorporated in aesthetic education. So here the visual arts, all form of visual arts, whether it is painting, drawing, sculpture, photography, and even the digital art, everything gets encompassed in the aesthetic education. All forms of performing art, music, dance, theater, film, any kind of the performing art whether it is instrumental, whether it is vocal music, everything is incorporated in the performing arts. And I that really makes me revisit the days I've done science. So I've been a science educator, and I have experimented poetry and theater to a large extent in transaction of scientific concepts, and it had worked beautifully. We've worked on the air quality through theater. We've worked on the concept of vaccination through theater and poetry. We've worked on the concept of essence of science and the life of people, building scientific temperament. We have worked on female feticide. So different themes we have been able to take up through the means of theater and poetry and music. Uh, and it has been amazing. Those students who did participate in those sort of activities long back, they have got settled in life now, they've married, they have kids, and they still relate to those titles that they had got as a part of those performances. So that is the power of artistic say aesthetic education. uh, Now, coming to the other forms of aesthetic education, even literature, poetry, analyzing the literary work, understanding the symbolism, and cultivating a love for reading and writing also is incorporated in aesthetic education. Cultural studies, understanding the significance of culture, uh, artifacts, the practices, the forms of celebrations, artistic expressions, all across different cultures. And I'm sure many of my fellow educators must have participated in the International School Award that was supported by British Council. It ultimately eventually took the shape of International Dimension School, but that was one sorry opportunity that we had at schools, wherein we could enable our students um, experience different cultures of different states of our own country, and beyond that the different cultures across the globe. And I remember we've done projects with Egypt, we have done projects with Indonesia, we have done projects with England, we've done projects with Nepal. So those kind of say projects wherein learning goes beyond the dimension and boundaries of the countries, regions, states, languages. It really helps in appreciation of each other's cultures and building tolerance, and therefore building resilience at the same time. Um, Other facets of aesthetic education: art, history, and critical approach. So it is not only that one develops creativity and appreciation for creative thinking. The aesthetic education also helps in understanding of historical context of art and developing a critical thinking skill to evaluate and appreciate art forms. And in building the life skills among the students, among the young generation, building the critical thinking and creative thinking is one major step towards solving the real world problems. A creative expression, the ability to express thought, express emotions, ideas through the varied art forms, and imagine the kind of self worth that creative expression generates. Multimedia and technology, as I said, art fusion, fusion of art with technology, digital art, animation, multimedia. All these are also the different facets of aesthetic education. Of course, the aesthetic education has a lot to do with experiential learning. So, where the student experiences the closeliness not only with nature but with the different cultures, with the different art forms, and develops an appreciation and respect and tolerance for varying uh, perspectives. Integration with other disciplines, interdisciplinary learning, and creative problem solving is another major gain from aesthetic education. I'll just move to the next slide. Um, Significance of aesthetic education. I had just highlighted a few things while I was presenting the previous slide. Here, significance of aesthetic education is in fostering um, deep thinking and self-expression, as we discussed, and that ultimately, eventually, I will look at the next slide wherein each of these points are elaborated. So improved communication results into cultural appreciation and awareness, resilience and coping mechanisms get evolved, lifelong learning and appreciation. Let's look at the elaboration of all these areas. So, the self expression helps in fostering deep thinking. It fosters creativity, critical thinking, and emotional intelligence among the people who participate in the art education. Um, Improved communication, the alternate art, the aesthetic education, the art forms, they provide us alternate modes of communication, of course. It encourages the students to express themselves authentically, because here each one's a different perspective, different style, different abilities, different criteria is appreciated rather than judged. Cultural appreciation and awareness. Uh, Exposure of students to diverse cultures, traditions, and histories through art forms is quite possible. It fosters cultural appreciation, empathy, which is so much needed in today's global scenario, and a global perspective. And this is where I would again mention that it is important, it is imperative that students are given exposure to the different cultures across the world, so that all these different facets of their development are taken care of. Resilience and coping mechanism. A safe outlet, of course, the art education, the aesthetic education provides some safe outlet of their emotions and their thinking, and that helps them navigate and process their emotions well. It aids in developing resilience, helps in coping mechanism and handling stress or adversity. Imagine when you're agitated, rather than taking the agitation out on the other human beings or other life forms, if you have a canvas or a musical instrument or a poetic expression to express your anger, you have a easy and harmonious vent for your emotions. So it definitely helps in building coping mechanisms and resilience. And um, all the more, the uh, aesthetic education, the self expression, the um, uh, respect and empathy for the varied perspectives. It builds confidence among the learners. It nurtures a sense of accomplishment among the students when they're able to give shape to an art form and they're able to express. So, all people here are not measured through one yardstick. They have different parameters of expressing what they learn. It fosters self confidence and self esteem by all means. And lifelong learning and appreciation is built. It instills a lifelong appreciation for arts, because there's no close, there's no end to what could be done with the knowledge that the students process, and how many different forms they can express it, and how many different ways they can express it, depending upon their resources, of course, their abilities, their circumstances, their the emotions, the thought process at a given point of time. And every time you would find a new outcome. So it definitely instills a lifelong appreciation for arts, promoting continuous learning and exploration beyond the classroom setting. So these are the different benefits and significance. This is the significance of aesthetic education for students. So let's look at what was Tagore's vision for aesthetic education. Um, so in Shanti-Niketan, the classes were held in open. The classes were not held in the closed rooms with four walls there. Tagore believed that whenever a student's attention diverts from the topic, it goes to the nature and the natural elements. The student interacts with the nature rather than uh, confining his attention and vision only to the uh, that particular topic or that particular instance. And dear friends, today the challenge of attention span is far more bigger. Tagore's time was that of late 19th century and the early 20th century, with the disruptions through technology. The world has become all the more complex. And with the Tagore's vision, I would not advocate the students to be just confined to or glued to those screens of their devices. We at in the contemporary times, it's an essential thing that we connect children with nature, and we give them as much experiential learning through nature walks, through field trips, through hands-on activities as much as possible. So, in Tagore's vision, integration of learning with life was essential. Education seamlessly woven into everyday experience, merging with the essence of existence, has been his prime uh, uh, criteria. Freedom of mind, heart, and will. And I really um, get goosebumps when I use when I recite that poem or whenever I read it, and it has been the school prayer for my school across. I would like to read this particular poem of Rabindranath Tagore. Uh, so this goes like, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action, into that heaven of freedom. My Father, let my country awake. He wrote this long back in early 20th century, and this still holds so true today. We need a world where there is freedom of mind, heart, and will, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into dreary desert sand of dead habit. And what we're witnessing in the wars that humanity is having against other human beings, it's such a sad affair, and therefore Tagore becomes all the more relevant in today's times, dear friends. Moving towards the next point, where education through arts. So here there is one very specific and unique uh, feature. Tagore did not believe in education about arts. Like in today's curricula, what we have a certain sessions allocated for music, certain sessions allocated for teaching theater, certain sessions allocated for teaching visual arts, certain sessions allocated for teaching dance. All those sort of allocations of timetable happens, but Tagore believed in using art as a pedagogical approach, where science is taught through um, aesthetic education, where mathematics is dealt with through aesthetic education, through art. So art not a as a dimension, as a domain for learning. Art becomes a medium for learning different subjects. And imagine the kind of deep learning that happens in such case. As I mentioned, that my students, those who had done those science plays with me long back, 15, 20 years back, they still relate to those characters that they played in those dramas, science dramas. So his preferred mode of pedagogy was through arts, be it visual art, be it performing arts, be it instruments, be it any other form. So it's need of the art that we think back on that. A connection with nature and spirituality. uh, so reverence for nature and spirituality into the learning process, identification of every living being as a creature, or every creature as a soul, and as being as important as anybody else, has been a unique feature of Tagore's vision. Harmonious development with cultural enrichment. So, exposure to diverse cultures, traditions, art was essential in nurturing well rounded individuals who are not only academically proficient but also emotionally intelligent, morally upright. So, that has been the strength of. I've just picked up a few nuggets from his vision and wisdom. There's far more that can be talked about, but for this presentation, I plan to share this much. Going for the next slide, wherein I would elaborate how in Vishwa Bharati University that Tagore founded in 1921, how it still follows Tagore's vision, and how this particular university has taken up to the modern ways, to the technology also, to the global exchange programs also, but still it adheres to Tagore's philosophy of education. Uh, Here the curricular emphasis is on arts, of course, and there are many renowned personalities, many renowned Indians that this university has given to the world. For example, Satyajit Ray, who's been a renowned filmmaker. Curricular emphasis on arts, integration of arts into academic curriculum, various disciplines, including fine arts, music, dance, drama, and literature, are celebrated. Uh, Vishwa Bharati comes across as a cultural hub. There are cultural events, exhibitions, performances, workshops that are regularly organized to celebrate and preserve artistic traditions. Then still there the Gurukul system of education is followed, wherein the bond between the teacher and the taught, the professors and the students is celebrated. So there is due stress on personalized learning, allowing students to explore their artistic talents under the guidance of experienced mentors. Uh, there are global exchange programs that are organized by the university. The global exchange programs enabling students to interact with international artists, scholars, and students. There is freedom of artistic expression. There is a stimulation of creativity and innovation among students. So, there the students have due opportunities and due provision for expressing themselves through different forms of art. Nature centric learning, campus design, and the natural surroundings still provides an inspiring backdrop for artistic exploration, fostering a conducive environment for creative expression. And there's continued relevance of Tagore's ideals here. Though the university functions with all the modern amenities, also emphasizing the importance of aesthetic learning, nurturing well rounded individuals capable of contributing meaningfully to the society. Now, fostering resilience through aesthetic education. Though I have related with these points to certain extent earlier also, let's look at each of these areas, how aesthetic learning can foster resilience among people. So, emotional resilience. Aesthetic education provides individuals with a means of emotional expression and coping mechanism. And what we see today's time is that the students are losing that connect not only with the world outside but with their families also. I see here in my region that in a room there are four people sitting, and then uh, each one with their own mobile phone, and they're not interacting. uh, so what happens, people really are lonely even if they're sitting amidst say a family or many other people in a social setup. And that we as schools, as the education institutions, whether it is in higher education or whether it is in schools, we have to see to it that we provide them ample opportunities of connecting with other people, provide them social connectedness that would result into emotional resilience. So aesthetic education provides the individuals with the means of expressing their emotions, and therefore they develop emotional resilience, community cohesion, because when you are working on projects in aesthetic education, whether you are working for a group presentation, group performance of a dance or a drama or a choir, or a big size visual art project, you do interact and collaborate with other people. So it would uh, eventually lead that social connectedness and builds community cohesion. The creative problem solving, of course, somebody who's been raised uh, through the means of allowing artistic expressions, interaction with nature, and uh, is appreciated for the varied perspective, obviously will build the creative problem solving approach, because aesthetic learning, aesthetic education, or art education, it provides a lot of scope for divergent thinking. You're not having one right answer only that everyone has to provide. It is that there are multiple ways and means to perceive the given concept, and there are multiple ways to express your understanding and your perspective on that. So therefore the art education, the aesthetic education, aesthetic learning would help in divergent thinking, and therefore creative problem solving skills are built. Cultural understanding and empathy, I've stressed upon it earlier also, that when you're exposing the students about the cultures of the world, cultures of different regions, different states, definitely they would develop the cultural understanding and empathy. For example, there are so many harvest festivals that are celebrated across the world. Suppose you are carrying out a project on harvest festivals across the globe, you're able to build their understanding about the different crops that are grown in different parts of the world, different states in your own country. And then what are the festivals celebrated, how are they celebrated, what food is cooked, what dresses are worn. So it would give them lot of insight on the weather conditions in relation, see the celebrations in relation with the weather conditions, celebrations in relation with the harvest of crops, the kind of crop, the kind of variety. So it these are the opportunities that we as educational institutions have of building cultural understanding and empathy among the students, among the learners. Obviously, when there is this opportunity of expression, divergent thinking, and there is a freedom of will, the freedom of expressing emotions, there's a freedom of mind and thought, the stress reduction and well-being enhancement happens. So students are engaged in artistic activities, and they would have an upliftment of their well-being, and that would lead to stress reduction, and there would be lesser instances of violence in the world. The next one that is here is adaptability and flexibility. So obviously the aesthetic education, uh, providing the divergent thinking abilities, it leads to development of adaptability and flexibility among the learners. Obviously, when there are the aesthetic learning projects carried out, there would be uh, ample scope for students to come out as leaders, and since they have varied means of communication, they would be able to break the barriers of languages and regions, and they would emerge out with stronger communication skills with alternative modes of communication. And there will be ample examples across the world wherein people have connected so very well without without knowing each other's language. I remember in 2015, when I went for the educators exchange, I remember that there were people who did not know each other's languages, but through the translators and through the different means of expression, they've been able to uh, connect and communicate with each other. In fact, my own group, we won the international, the Global Educators Award for Mindshift. And we were like six ladies with six different next nationalities. There was somebody from Netherlands, there was somebody from Egypt, there was somebody from Mexico, there I was from India, there was somebody from Malaysia, and I've not forgotten that day till today, that from varied nationalities, varied languages, varied cultures, we could come together as a joint group of women there. Moving to the next slide. Um, Today's time, the relevance of the aesthetic education in the contemporary world. This is a report by the World Bank, and it says that about 2 billion people, and this was in 2021, 2 billion people in the world, and the half of the world's extreme poor live in countries affected with fragility, conflict, and violence. And it says that by 2030, up to two-thirds of the world's extreme poor will live in FCV settings. And this is the grave issue that we're facing today, dear friends. When you look at the next slide, it brings tears into my eyes that we have billions of people who are starving, who are living a life with hunger. So, and we can meet their requirements of food just by investing a few billions dollars, but we are burning trillions of dollars in the war fields. And we are in a situation where a large population of the world is hungry, and they are into very dilapidated state. It's a time to think and take action. So aesthetic education is the need of the hour now. Aesthetic education inspired by Tagore's vision and lived through Shanti-Niketan stands as a testimony for building resilient communities, nurturing individuals equipped to face challenges with creativity. So in today's world plagued with climate change, poverty, conflict, we require due modifications in our perspective on education, and support the education that nurtures each being to blossom fully. I'll just share a few instances, a few steps that Indian government has taken. Uh, we have come up with a new education policy that came up in 2020, and there is a new curriculum framework which has been given out in August 2023, wherein art integration is a cross cultural pedagogical approach that utilizes various aspects and forms of art and culture as a basis for learning of concepts across subject. And this has been taken up so seriously that art integration is one of the major thrust area of teachers training nationwide. There is this society of promotion of Indian classical music and culture among youth, SPICMECE, and this body coordinates the cultural performances, the art workshops, and all different kinds of trainings for school students, college students, into the varied Indian art forms. And I really look forward to having something which goes across the boundaries of the nations in this particular field. There's a detailed outline of art education domain which has been presented in NCF 2023. There are varied approaches of assessments that have been picked up for art integrated learning. With my experience, the schools that celebrate how the schools operate the art integrated approach. Some major the areas that I've listed where, and I have witnessed schools taking up these steps towards building the art education, aesthetic education as a pedagogical tool, and in communicating the message to the students and to the larger society, because most of the shows are attended by parents also, and from the different representatives of society also, community also. So many a schools, they celebrate annual days on themes ranging from mythology to festivals of the world, and they do touch upon the contemporary issues at times. I remember we've done one play long back on the um, um on the freedom of mind and speech. Um, Now, musical dance dramas happen, theater as a pedagogical approach. I had given you an example of how I had done science plays and science poetry. Quite a few schools, they organize theme-based exhibitions and gallery walks. There are international sports celebrated, the International School Award that I had given a brief about. I have this particular link which is here. I'm sharing this in the chat box also. This is for the participants to respond. That's checklist on aesthetic education that they follow in their respective educational institutions. Um, with this, I come to the end of my presentation, and I'm open to the uh, questions from the audience. Just give me a sec to share the link for the checklist that the participants may respond to. This will help me understand if there are different other different approaches that participants take in their respective educational institutions for building aesthetic learning. So the link is here. Um, yes, Yang, we have some questions.
We would like to take up some questions now.
Yeah. Um, how can educational institutions integrate aesthetic learning into curriculum while ensuring that the students could meet benchmark for expectations of formal exams? Yes. So the limitation that happens with majority of the schools or educational institution is that we are focused towards the exam, and there are formal exams, so that doesn't give them space. But the curriculum always has a scope for the foundational domain. Like in India, we do have a certain weightage on the foundational domain, and then a certain weightage on the scholastic domain also. And as per the Tagore's vision, Yang, that I just mentioned, here the aesthetic education is not any end product, that's the process. So, be it any concept of science, or be it any concept of mathematics, social studies, that can easily be taken through the means of aesthetic education. So, rather than explanation of that concept, if you build around, say, if it is a science, social science topic, you can always allot certain characters to the students and let them study, research their own part, and they come up with a performance with that, and that makes learning experiential, and that makes lasting impressions on the students' minds, and then they perform well even in those formal exams. And I have personally tried and tested it, so I say that with confidence that it is possible to do it. What are some current difficulties that we are facing in the integrating aesthetic education? Uh, I think we miss the vision for that. So thing is that when you want to incorporate aesthetic learning in your uh, pedagogy, it needs ample planning. It needs planning well in advance, and for that one needs to first, like as an educator, one needs to explore reads a lot, one explores, one goes and attends performances, and then generates more and more ideas. It is pretty easy and it is quite possible. But we've got to open ourselves to learning new facets. And for that, we need more exposure. Teachers' trainings are required, but teachers' exposure and that willingness, that motivation to take up aesthetic learning as a pedagogical means, it is also required. Um, Idea of making lifestyle change is not liked and followed by many due to sheer ignorance. Quite rightly said, Mayanka. It is that we've got to generate this right from the elementary level. When people have grown up with certain mindsets, and then you want them to change those values, it becomes challenging. For that, you have to be very persistent, and you've got to work for a longer duration, and we don't really do that. If we build it from the elementary level, people wouldn't resist it. It would become a way of life. But when it is with the grown-ups that you want to change, then you will have to be persistent, logical, and it comes across that ways. Would you please recommend any readings about Tagore? um, I will definitely share a few with Yang. Um, I did very basically. I must confess that I have done a lot of references, a lot of reading myself to build this presentation, but I haven't read any particular resource as such which I would recommend. But I will definitely refer to some, and I would come across with the suggestive readings. There is a collection of poetry by Dr. Rabindranath Tagore, which is Gitanjali, which is a collection of poems by him. And he did stress upon the social cohesion, but he was the one who had composed Ekla Chalore. So that's the level of spiritual development where you know that you are coexisting with the people across the world, but at the same time you are the only one. Your life is your own solo journey. So that's the depth of Tagore's writings and the Tagore's contribution to the world, that he's stressed upon the development of communities, but at the same time upliftment of one's spirit also. Any more questions, Yang?
Yes, I think we have pretty much covered all the questions. And once again, thank you, Soma Singh, for sharing an insightful presentations on incorporating arts in education for learners' skills development to address global issues. And also, we apologize for all the technical issues we have today. We really appreciate having you, Soma Singh, and all our participants who attended this session today. Looking forward to seeing you all in the next session. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. It was a thorough pleasure. With technology, sometimes issues do happen. Thank you so much. Bye bye, everyone. Have a great time.